I'm going to move into a slightly different area. So we've talked about live and move quite a lot. I'm going to focus quite a bit on the work section here. So I'm talking about thriving in a challenging environment, and I'm going to be focusing quite a bit on risks. But we're going beyond the built environment here. That's part of it, but we need to take it into a slightly different arena. So when we go beyond that built environment, we're looking at risk, we're looking at resilience, and that's already come up in the sessions already today, and also our response. Now, when it comes to response, it's very much looking at preparation, actually. And I just wanted to bring up here that some of you may be aware of what's going on in London today. They're calling it Exercise Strong Tower. And based on the fact that, you know, particularly with terrorist attacks going on around the world, and we've all seen on the news about Tunisia, these are risks that we face. But what's happening in London today is certain tests around London. And again, I think this brings together the collaboration point, that our response, it has to be preparation and prevention and protection to a certain extent. But we do face these risks, the challenges are there, and we have to deal with them. So that preparation point is key, but we also have to think about the crisis management afterwards. And again, I just use the terrorist attacks as one of the risks that we face. But I just wanted to talk a bit about the changing structure. So I said I'm focusing quite a lot on business and work. And actually, the way businesses work today, it's changed beyond recognition. Even traditional manufacturing firms make a lot of their money from after-sales service and maintenance. So it's very much going towards the people and service industry, which of course London is famous for, particularly financial services. But the message here is that no company operates in isolation, and no sector operates in isolation. We've talked about the private sector and the public sector working together, and it's this connectivity that we have to think about. So in terms of this sort of no one operating in isolation, you're relying on the local area in terms of infrastructure and people and services. But anyone who thinks that London is protected from global risks, or that their business, however small or local it is protected from these global risks, is wrong. No one operates in isolation. We're all part of a long and very complex web, a value chain of suppliers and customers, particularly as I'm focusing on the business part. So we're relying on infrastructure and local services, technology, of course. I know there's a cyber section later this afternoon when we're talking about the disruptive technology, increased outsourcing, complex web of suppliers, but people. You know, we're focusing on service industry a lot here, and it was actually our CEO recently who talked about brain business. We're a brain business, and there's an awful lot of brain businesses based in London. So it's those people and getting those people to the office or not. You know, the working from home, the use of technology. We have to embrace all of these changes, but we also have to recognize the risks that come with them. This idea of globalization, of course, everyone's either directly or indirectly affected by these risks and the challenges that you face from the world risks, from the global risks. But I just wanted to explore that risk landscape a bit more. This chart is taken from, it's the Global Risks Report, which is, comes from the World Economic Forum. Obviously, you've heard of what happened in Davos. But this is risk managers around the world voting on the global risks that are going to affect them. So it's looking at the likelihood of these risks occurring, but also the impact on them and their business. Cyber attacks is bound to be top right, but this is where we explore a bit more the sort of traditional damage-related events and move more into the non-damage arena. So You can see conflict, climate change adaptation. We've already talked about the risks there. We've got traditional sort of damage-related events, natural catastrophes, and again, you may think, natural catastrophes, they happen on the other side of the world, but of course they don't. They happen in the UK from a flooding perspective. The City of London is relatively protected from the Thames Barrier, but when we're looking at expanding our area, we need to really think about these as well. So, this, I thought, was an interesting view because this is the movement year on year. These risk managers are asked to look at this every year, and you can see certain events impacting their view. So you can see the red, this is a sort of shooting stars diagram, but the red star there in terms of infectious disease, so the risk with Ebola. You can also see some movement there in terms of terrorist attacks, social instability, and interstate conflicts. And again, something that we tend to think happens somewhere else, but it's not that long ago that we had the riots in London and civil commotion. It's something that's very real. So from a technology point of view and cyber attacks, of course, but technology, we don't just think about cyber attacks, we have to think about power, and I know, we are thinking about power today. I was chatting to the UK Power Networks guys earlier. So it's the power that everyone's relying on as well. And again, it's the risks that we face as a result of that. So so I've explored the change in business structures. We've looked at the world and global risks that businesses are facing, either directly or indirectly. But I also wanted to just mention about the preparation piece. So we're trying to future-proof London. And, to what extent can we do that, I don't know, but I think we have to really change the time horizon that we're looking at. We have to look at loss scenario work in terms of preparation, and again, I mentioned Operation Strong Tower, and that's what they're trying to do in terms of the preparation and prevention to a certain extent. But really, from a business perspective, it's when you're facing these risks, it's about being nimble and being flexible to whatever is thrown at you. To a certain extent, we can predict some events, but no one's got a crystal ball. No one can say what the next big event will be. And therefore, we have to have this flexibility, and we have to realize that each business, each sector, each division has to focus on the effect of any event on them and trying to look at the potential impact on profit. But this is not just about surviving, it's about thriving in this environment. So that's what we're trying to do in terms of the preparation. But also, I said about protection, and I'm in the risk and insurance business, so I'm going to talk a bit about the protection piece. But from a business interruption aspect, it could be lots of different risks that businesses face, and there are insurance policies available to help. But the emphasis here is the fact that insurance hopefully will provide the funds to assist in the recovery, but you have to know what to do with those funds, so it's all part of the preparation piece. Traditionally, people have talked about insurance as protecting assets, but the biggest growth area is actually about the protection of business. It's protection of assets, but also cash flow and profit. So that's where we're looking at in terms of sort of fresh thinking. It's looking at anything that can interrupt business and making sure that insurance is part of this protection piece in terms of looking at those risks.